Well, hello again, my friends. Alfredaro here, the Revolter. And this is test number 2, but I'm determined to make this work. Had a log. We're clearing up some land around my property that goes into an area that can't be developed, can't be doing anything. So I have lots of land. In that land, there's abundance of pepper trees, oaks, palms, and some other trees that I have no idea what they are. Even got some carrot wood, much to my surprise, which is a wood I had never heard of until I found a Craigslist with somebody saying carrot wood. I was like, what is carrot wood? Oh, I gotta go check it out. And it turned out to be beautiful wood. Well, I got a good sized tree in my yard. Not saying I'm gonna cut it down because it's a nice looking tree. But if limbs come down or something like that, I can always get small pieces of it. But buried inside the woods, as you know, I found some of the flatwood, I believe, or that pine, translucent pine, and I still got a log of it, and I got another piece back there. But alongside of that, there was an oak tree that was downed. I had never cleaned out back there. It was all overgrown with weeds, so it's always been down since I've been down here. And I've been down here a little over 12 years, 13 years. So it's a tree that's been down for a long time. And I would say the base of it was probably this wide, maybe 20 inches, 24 inches diameter. And I went to it, and pretty much about 4 inches of that perimeter of that tree, at least 4 inches, is completely rotted. You touch it and you can put your finger right through it, down to the core. And the center of it has some solid wood. The piece that I got here is actually close to the root where it actually came down. And that part was completely eaten away, other than the spikes that were left over of the solid wood. But the soft stuff had disintegrated from there, had been eaten away. And yesterday I put in a piece, not from the root, but a little further up, and I cleaned up all that soft, spongy stuff that was on it. And I started turning because I knew. I did not know if it was doable. I was doubtful that I could turn it. But I was very curious. What is inside of it? And the curiosity is really what enticed me to bring it up. And I had the bowl, pretty much its shape, and it just split it kind of in half. And the reason why it's split in half is because it has so many grub holes, wormholes going through it, that it makes a web of, and I knew that that's what I was looking for. I was hoping that I could do it. So without so much talk and little action, I want to show you what's the core of this part that used to be part of the root system, pretty much close to the root. And like I said, this was probably out here all the way around, at least a 4-inch parameter, but I did not have that. So all this has been exposed to the weather and the elements, and there's some areas that are very soft still, but the majority of the soft stuff on this one is gone. So what I got here is pretty much doable as far as turning it. And why would I turn something like this? Because it has something that I cannot possibly create myself. It has all these intricate holes going through that when all said and done, if I do succeed, it will create something that I think is amazing. But that's me. I'm a rebel for a reason, I guess. So I am ready to get started on this. I'm gonna mount it like I normally do. Spur drive and live center, and I'm gonna start throwing it up, make a tenon as soon as I possibly can. Because the tenon, of course, gives me a lot more flexibility, and I'm able to speed up the lathe as soon as I get something a little bit more solid. Now, a lot of these pieces are still going to come off this. There's no question about that. Let's bring you to the lathe and show you the full process. Well, I am sorry, but forgot to turn the camera back on after the CA at some point. Anyway, going in here and still going at it. Okay, well, as you can see, you could probably see why I want to turn this piece. But yes, I got a lot of this, and last time I had something like this that I can literally pluck off. It came out pretty interesting by doing something a little bit different. I'm going to, this is thick. I'm going to apply some thin CA to these areas because it's time for me to start concentrating on what it is that I want to save. And basically I want to save all of this and start going in there with some of the actual shavings from this wood on what's solid that's coming out of it. Some of the red oak dust shavings and blobbing it up in there. Now be careful, CA really gets hot when you apply it heavy like this. Literally hot to burn your fingers, to burn your hands to the touch. So be careful. It can be done, but rub it in, get those voids filled up. CA will stiffen up the fibers. Some areas you don't need to throw dust, you just need to strengthen them up. But where you got holes like that, fill it up with a little bit of CA in there and throw CA in there again, because you're going to shave that off. I don't want to put it where I don't need it. I just want to put it where I do need it. Alright, and I know I already got most of this top edge treated, so okay, as I've done before, on these bigger voids and just in spots, not the whole thing. I don't want this whole thing to be solid with the sawdust, but spots, isolated spots. Put some coarse sawdust, not the fine stuff, because the coarse is what's going to give you the character that is really going to be appealing at the end. You fill it up and put some CA in there. And what wants to stay will stay. I want to see crevices on this. I don't want to see this as a solid piece, or else I wouldn't have bothered to come in here and take the chance that I'm taking with something that I didn't want to start off with. I want it, so therefore I'm fixing it to keep. And when all said and done, this should create some really interesting textures amongst these crevices. The only thing is, you have to go in there and return it, or sand it, or do something to finish up with what you want. There we go. Should not have to do any more filler on this. It's got filler in here, some voids in here. This one I think is okay. I'm okay with that. Could probably throw a little bit of sawdust in here as well. Let me do that. If it's questionable, then do something about it. Ready to go in here and make one last cut for this piece. This should be pretty good. That should be pretty good for sanding, actually. I think this is ready to be flipped around, but like I was saying, I really did not want this much to be closed up, so I want some of these voids to be opened up. Some of this will fly off from the inside because the glue is mostly on the outside anyway, but Now, looking at this, and the area that I thought was going to be problematic, if I don't do something right now, it's definitely going to blow away. You can see that I got a split going all the way up in this area here. So, need to address it right now. Gonna put some sawdust to fill up this void right here on the inside. I still want some of it to be there, but it's gotta grab those fibers. This piece is literally separated one side from the other. So let it dry for a couple of minutes. Let the CA do its thing in there. What it wants to do. And this bottom hole, well, I don't like it where it falls in. It's going to be transparent to the tabletop, and that's not a likable area for me. You know, I can't control where the worms ate, but I sure as heck can control what I want to be shown. So, with that in there, again, CA, just this bottom area right here. It's too big of a void to be on the bottom. That one would not be in danger of me losing it. It would be just one of those, I wish it wasn't there type things. Everything else, the more I got here, the better I like it. But on the bottom, I could take it or leave it. And I better address it to where I want it. Well, on this case, the architects, the little buggers, did the work and created the piece to where you want it to be. Well, it's time to go in here and sand it. I don't think I want to take the chance of cutting it any further. I do have a couple of tool marks, but I can get that out with a sander. The thickness is good. I just want to smooth out these areas and maybe open up some of these spots again. Haven't used sanding sealer in a long time, but because of all the punky stuff still left on this piece, I'm going to apply a sanding sealer. And this is Minwax water-based sanding sealer. This is one good way of, if you have something that's got a lot of crevices and stuff like that, of putting somewhat of a finish in it without it being gunked up and that sort of stuff. So again, I haven't used the sanding sealer in quite some time. I used to use it on every piece that I turned before I actually started using Yorkshire grit. I found it to be a huge help with the final piece. If I had a piece of wood that was stubborn and would not take a proper finish, I could not get it to shine, or it had dull spots all the time. This was always the rescue to something of that sort. It always gave me good results. Now, this, putting it in the grooves and the bark, well, it's not bark, this is all decay, where all the sapwood was eaten away by the elements and by the insects, of course. So what only stood was the harder piece, harder particles in the wood. Now if I turn this on, this is going to splatter this stuff all over the place. So rather than do that, I'll let it dry for a couple of minutes and maybe spray it down with water. Be right back. Now, adding the sawdust was necessary. If you look at this mark right here, this was a clear opening front to back all the way across to this point. At this point, the only solid piece of wood is this little 1/2 inch, and then it became punky stuff again, very soft, this white that's going on here. So if I did not put the sawdust going through here, and this one over here was more because I did not want to see an opening on the bottom of the piece, but if I did not put this sawdust in here, this would have been very hard to keep together. Guaranteed that this would have blown out somewhere in here, and this would have the whole section over here would have separated from the bowl. This area right here was clear all the way through, and I did not want to see a void going from top all the way to the bottom. So rather than see that, I put the sawdust in here as well, filling up this one. And like I said, had it been with an opening here, I would have been fine with it as well. But the fact of keeping this together, especially when you got small points that are holding a piece together, they could literally break apart at these points here, between here and grabbing this, and then nothing else over here would hold it together. So this chunk could have flown off, this big chunk right here to some point over here, it doesn't matter which one, but to one of these points, this is guaranteed, this one is guaranteed that this would have flown away, this one over here. And this one is probably pretty likely that it would do the same, because there aren't many big points of connection of solid wood. This is a separation going through here, another separation, and that's close enough to over here, so only leaving me about an inch and a quarter of solid wood in between that span. So the likelihood of it staying together would have been very slim. And with that, it gives so much more character. You got the light woods, you got the dark reds, you got the pinks, you got these brown speckled areas that if If I had put like a red wood mixed with white shavings and stuff like that, or brown with shavings mixed white, and I blobbed it in there, and I did not go with the coarse, it would have given a nice, interesting look as well. I generally use the same shavings that I'm getting from the pieces I'm turning. As long as they're not super long, they're kind of small pieces but not fine sawdust. That's what I use to fill up voids like this. Always live and learn. I'm a strong believer of that. Always learning. I'm a strong believer of never know it all. Know what you know, but always be willing to learn more on a daily basis. I say that if I don't learn something new today, I did something wrong. I did not apply myself, because life should always be learning. Should always be learning. We can learn this from the simplest things, and if I learn something, I'm happy. Okay. Time to bring this back to life again. And gonna apply. Not so sure if this is the best choice for this particular case, seeing that it has all these crevices. And the paper towel will end up breaking up on me. But some Yorkshire grit going here, and then I'll blow out all the excess out of these holes. But this, I'm sure, has a sealer with it as well, so that will assist me on this. Well, I'm not going to get a luster on this for sure. Too much going on, and I actually don't care too much for the tool marks that I got, but the piece is somewhat wobbly, and not going to go any further than this. It is what it is, and I don't think I have anything to be sorry for the way it looks. I think that it looks phenomenal. And it's time to put it up, but gonna lock it up. Gonna put it up the way I normally do, again with